Good morning. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. I'm Aleks Dmitrovic, Senior Vice President, Digital Transformation and Security at Alcor. Today, we're going to be focusing in on beyond cybersecurity threat landscape with a theme around disruption is here. Is security your new boss? Really excited to be here today. Today, we're going to share some thought leadership and insights on how organizations are embracing digital transformation. We're going to address some ongoing changes due to the pandemic, new cybersecurity guidelines, ransomware, and more. It gives me great pleasure to lead this session among the global audience. Our panelists today are fantastic. I think we're going to have a wonderful time. We're going to focus on the executive focus on 2021 and beyond. We're going to look at the CISO state of cybersecurity. And we're going to talk a little bit about risk management and governance mandates. And without further ado, let's introduce our panelists. First and foremost, we're incredibly excited to have Waqas Akkawi with us today. He's a VP-CISO and DPO at SIRVA Worldwide, global relocation moving services provider in 170 countries. We're going to have Waqas introduce himself shortly. He's been in the security industry for over 25 years, oversees the global cybersecurity program, from SecOps, technology risk management, governance to compliance. Waqas is a well-recognized thought leader in cybersecurity. He's been nominated for top CISO, top 50 CISO in the world. And Waqas is also nominated several times for the CISO of the Year in Chicago. Waqas, if you could just say hello and maybe give us an introduction to SIRVA Worldwide as well. Happy again to have you here today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Alex. Excited to be here with you all. This is an incredible honor. Look, I mean, the great introduction, Alex. Thank you so much for it. You know, I've been in many different organizations and industries, you know, from financial to transportation and manufacturing, spans from that. Very incredible being part of the SIRVA Worldwide leadership team. SIRVA is well-recognized moving and relocation, executive relocation services in the world. It's a premier relocation company. We are in 170 countries. And what's unique about the industry is that movement of personal information of executives, even their pets' names and their household, whoever that might be, moving and relocating across the world on assignment or permanent relocation. And that way, their movement across different regions in the world gets it to be a unique opportunity to secure that information, the PII, all across the world, all, you know, touching on all different privacy and security standards and regulations. So my pleasure to be part of that. SIRVA owns and Allied and North American van lines. Probably you've seen those around the, the States, but also Pickfords in the different sector of the world. Back to you, Alex. Thank you.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you so much. Again, incredible to have you here today. We're really excited to share some thoughts around the changing landscape and the things that you're seeing every day in the cybersecurity landscape. Quick introduction again of myself. I've been in this in the digital transformation security space for a number of years, in technology for over 25 years. Worked with a lot of Fortune 50, Fortune 500 organizations globally. Working on their global cybersecurity governance compliance needs. Really happy to be here leading this conversation today, and incredibly excited to hear from our panelists. Introduce Brent. Brent, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Thank you. We're very happy to have all of you here today. I have about over 20 years experience in enterprise package software, and a lot of that across the ITSM, ITOM space. Specific to security, I helped move the entire Accenture Managed Security Services into a ServiceNow-centric platform, and have gained great visibility to the security posture of all of those clients. Also had the opportunity to manage the largest ServiceNow managed service environment, multi-tenant environment in the world, And that included very tight integration with a SOC for $1 billion managed service business. And then most recently have taken the approach to help our customers, including the largest quick serve restaurant in the world in 120 countries with the largest device count for Microsoft SCCM, manage their security posture and really get end-to-end with a closed loop solution we call remediation as a service, so that all records, all alerts, all events are accounted for. Nothing ever gets into an exception state that never times out. And we have the visibility again, provide that real-time dashboard to know when work is truly done. Thank you, Aleks.
Fantastic. Again, thank you for joining, and everyone who's on the session today. Hope you find it informative, and if you've got any questions, we'll hold that to the end. We'll have a couple of polls through the session as well. So let's kick it off. Waqas was kind enough to put together some information to start with, some top focus and response to the things that are happening. As everybody knows, the last 1.5 to 2 years has been a very interesting time. We've seen a lot of changes, a lot of needs from our customers as it relates to cybersecurity, governance, and risk. Waqas, you've put this information together. Talk us through some of the key things that you're seeing, because some of the key focuses from an executive perspective in this day and age.
Thank you, Aleks. It's clearly it's been always changing the top risks for executives across multiple and different industries, an organization that really wants to respond to risk. And risk management on the enterprise level really takes that seriously, and they prioritize their response and remediation accordingly. Management response in general is really essential. And what I've been following for a long time, Protiviti puts out a survey for the top executive for that year, 2021 for this instance. I've been following for a long time. And what's interesting is that cyber threat has always been number 3 on their survey with the top executives. And this is really multiple different industries. It's not only one industry. And for the past, coming into the 2020, just because of the pandemic, it dropped to number 6, and it was very interesting. And the shift has been completely correlated to the new pandemic and the new response of organization, the top risk, trying to make sure that their employees, get what they need to have to do their job, whatever they are. We went all remote, right? So the pandemic and related policies, right, from the government really dictated a big risk introduced to the top executives. And then if you think about, how things start to move, born digital, because other organizations who are large been, likely to have very old infrastructure that is very tough to move or to do an enhancement to it and bring it to the new age, like for cloud, integration, for instance, without spending a lot of money. So born digital companies are really, they got an advantage for quick and swift and agile, to the market, right? So because of that, if you see, there's a lot of new things that really start to emerge. Privacy is one of them across the world. You could see a lot of different risks to engage there. But the top regulations on policy and taxation is really what the economics for a company to survive and do well and be profitable is really stayed on the top 2 traditionally. And you find that the way it's being managed, that technology risk management on that level to prioritize risks, but really largely has to be introduced and worked through the enterprise risk management that enable the top leaders and the executive of their organization to give a response, at least.
Yeah, that's really interesting. It's even though COVID has really disrupted the way a lot of organizations work, we're still seeing a ton of these regulations come up, and they're high on the priority, it looks like here. How are you keeping up to date with all these changing regulations, and having to change, your internal policies and keeping up with things is just so much info.
Yeah, that's right. Biggest thing for me is really being involved and being present and engaged, right? Forums like this, what you put it on, where I listen to my CISO peers in different industry present, and they give their thoughts on things. And then, keeping up on different, forums and government, I would say, conferences and engagement. And I find out there is a whole lot of things that you can learn from your own clients, because your own clients, they have different palettes to risk management, and also sometimes things that are really that tough for one area of risk for one organization that's not necessarily the same as other. So you really need to have your fingertips on those, and then you collect the top risk. I do that from our clients to make sure that we respond to them. And one of them was data residency. What that means is that the European Union's clients to say, "Hey, I want my data to stay in Europe because of GDPR," and that's not necessarily true. GDPR provides the means and the standards and regulations to go along with data transfer. Doesn't mean to stay in Europe, but that was one big theme that I thought was very interesting that comes from our clients.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, and we've seen a lot of manufacturers that we work with that have had to embrace a lot of these regulation changes. As you said, data residency is a big one. There's Gaia is a big initiative out of Europe to ensure that the data residency and the systems, especially with organizations continuing to move to the cloud, that's a big priority. So that's fantastic. Really appreciate that. I think we were going to do a poll for the folks following along at home. Are you seeing anything different? Are your executives telling you anything different? Are these the priorities in your organization? And is your organization moving towards establishing technology risk management? Give you a minute or so to get some responses back on that. So far, it looks like we're unanimously organizations are pretty much aligned, and it's just the way the world is right now. So very good. Appreciate everybody's input on that. Fantastic. Well, let's jump into the next. So leading into from that, obviously there's a lot of things going on out there. Waqas, if you had to focus any of your areas, any of your efforts in any one of these areas, what would it be? I mean, first walk us through some of these trends, and let us know what are you focused on specifically?
Alex, it's many of them, but I had to boil them down to 10 or 8, right? In this instance, I always present 10, but 8 is really very much in line with what I see. And what has really been troubling is that the ransomware attacks have been prevalent and very impactful on many different organizations, especially in the medical area. We've seen that, and also manufacturing, where there is intellectual property could really be a target. Of course, they are looking to get monetary funds in exchange of their data back or their infrastructure, but the ransomware attacks have been on the rise. So the red here means moving higher on the risk registry, and then the yellow is really being steady. Still an issue, and the green ones are they basically been. Some folks have been remediating these for a while, so their risk profile is lower on the stack. So phishing attacks is really the one a lot of organizations still suffer from it, and introduces a huge risk from wire fraud to ransomware attacks that cripples their organization. So that's why they've been on the second on my agenda. Simulation of attacks on your users is a must, and that is a risk has not really been mitigated there because there's still phishing attempts that gets to be, breached, right, within, different computer systems, into, even administrators, they fall for it. And the cloud. I do not really say enough about cloud, just because cloud risk is really new. Has many different areas of risk there, has not been explored. Cloud security is really still emerging, and it's basically to develop a standard. There's some standards are being, changed on a weekly, monthly basis, just because they folks start to learn something new and being exploited, or they figure out a new vulnerability and needs to to mitigate. Testing backup has really been, I would say, challenging, because sometimes, how could you test backup? Is it the data, the infrastructure, Active Directory? How can you back up Active Directory, or Active Directory takes a big hit? Can you recover it in time? Those are the things, those are the questions that I need to be addressed. Automations, where things, make sure that you are leveraging what's going on with an environment and have an eye and visibility, I would say. So managed service providers are, been a key area of mitigating or giving you an advance warning, and also blocking attacks. That area was very dangerous in the past, because a lot of people do not want to give their logs outside of the organization. And I was saying it for about 10 years now, it's a must to have a different trusted partners, to help you out. And the enhancement of controls that have been always moving forward on the agenda, on the stack of mitigating or bringing the risks to an acceptable level. And clearly the SOC2 is for the US, but been start to be accepted across the world. NIST is really US based standard government. Matter of fact, I think of it as really the most holistic and comprehensive controls standards that a lot of organizations should really take advantage of. And the ISO 27000 is really more world known. And lastly, all the privacy from GDPR, and different countries are really embracing GDPR, but they introduce in their own. China just recently introduced their own sets of privacy laws. And you could see the Philippines, Australia, and so forth. Canada has one, they're called PIPA. It's a little bit different, but it's similar to the GDPR, if you're familiar with.
Absolutely.
And Waqas, in talking with you, I appreciate how, you can get to the green that you have on this slide, but there's still a big effort here, and there has to be a constant focus for clients to get there. And I appreciated the point that by leveraging managed security service providers, and that phrase is somewhat new, MSSPs, this is what's going to accelerate the opportunity for clients to get to a place where you've got these bottom four in a low risk registry state, because it's well managed, it's well understood. And this aspect of testing, I appreciated the point you made there, because a lot of people do tabletops where they talk through a test. Some organizations more mature take a BCRS where they actually have slice and dice scenarios, but you will not know if you can fully recover unless you have the environments and the ability to look like production or near production, and really drive them to failure, to know what breaks, so you can put the right monitoring and actually know what your recovery times are. So there's a maturity in how you go about the testing, so you have the assurance that when you really have that event, all parties are in place, all your data is in the right place, and you can actually achieve those recovery times.
Brent, you cannot even, say it more. I mean, that's exactly it. And it's challenging. It's simple when you put it on paper like this, but what's challenging is getting, the right, service provider to be a trusted partner, getting all the pieces in terms of the integration, and also the process of how to respond to each other, the cadence of updates and meetings, right? So those are not simple, from my perspective. And I cannot say, as you mentioned, Brent, about getting a trusted partner, somebody that really could help you to augment your thoughts, also introducing to you new things that comes along, or helps you, test things or look at your process to validate where you are to give you a peace of mind. But what would happen here is that you cannot hire all those people. You cannot hire enough engineers, cyber analysts, and all that. Once there are very few of them here, right? A lot of them. So people, if you could get trusted partners, one or two of them in different areas in cyber and risk management and governance and compliance, it adds so much, I would say, strength into your proposition and also your involvement to get executive buy-ins on your initiatives, on your projects.
Yeah, you mentioned skills is critical, and the managed security service providers also bring technology, not just, think about the heavy lifting to get an automation integration in place. Clients, you don't want to spend your $500,000 doing that. You want to spend your money getting value tailored to your security posture, position, your policies. And so these providers have already done these integrations on the automations. You can focus your efforts on tailoring them to your application.
Absolutely.
Yeah, one thing, Brent, sorry, Waqas, one thing I just wanted to ask Brent, along those lines, we see a lot of automation in the detecting of vulnerabilities or threats. I know you're working with a lot of organizations on remediation automation. Can you touch base on that and give us your thoughts on that as well? As you mentioned, there's a shortage of skills and of people. Remediation of these issues is also a big opportunity for automation.
Yeah, I'll just touch briefly and then turn it over to Waqas. We take the approach of work streams and identify, let's say vulnerabilities high on the list, right? Get all vulnerabilities coming to a central place so you can take a position. I equate the analogy to like a ship, right? You can have lots of issues, but I need to know right now, am I sinking, right? What is my posture? What's the most important thing to work on? But I still want to have the ability to see all of it. So bring in all the vulnerability records, not just severity 1, 2, 3, but bring in even the informational, right? Bring them all. Okay, then you go to the next area, my application weaknesses, bring them all, or all of my SSL and certificates. So you got to bring these, and we find clients that have even multiple data sources for these areas. Well, you've got to get them all into the same place is the first thing, and that means integrations. And then you start to rationalize and normalize what severity 1 is, what priority 1 is, and then the last mile is just to make sure that you've got all the teams that actually have to do the work. And typically they're not reporting to the security organization, that have the right assignment groups with the right skills, pointing back to what Waqas was pointing out. You got to have the right skills. A lot of times these security remediations for application teams are not developers, which is what clients may have. Their administrators or the people who initially set up the installations have to go back in and make adjustments. Over to you, Waqas. What's your observation?
Yeah, absolutely. My thought process here, you really cannot, the CISO or the security team, there are about 30,000 foot view, right, with about 2-inch deep. That much they could do, right? And for instance, if you take simulating testing, right, of the users, you're going to hire someone to do, just outsource that to an MSSP, and they'll do all that for you. And the skill sits there, and they are better than what you do. And you just, meet with them and say, this is what I want to do, and they'll do it for you. They integrate. So now it's one off. You don't have to have an analyst or half a person there. It's easy to do. Look at, for log management or the SIM. Why you want to manage that, right? And then you're out of dates, and is it updated, not updated? The good thing here is if you get the governance, program going and augment it with accreditation or I would say more of a second eye from a partner to help you organize it, maybe facilitate it, help you enhance your controls. Look at your processes. That is well worth where the money could be spent. That way, you reduce the risk posture of your organization, but also you enhance how business enablement, right? The people, they love to, be secure, and they'll engage with that, so their processes better secure, their engagements better, so enhances their digital, profitability. And I feel that is very important to do so.
Love it. Yeah, you're building a team of skilled folks across different organizations, different technologies. The collaboration is the key in security. Your CISO group is a think tank, and I love talking with you folks. It's incredible. Let's jump into the next one, and the themes carry over. We're looking at awareness. We're looking at the tools. One of the things that I bring up, and it really resonates with the security folks, is the bad guys only have to be right once. We have to be right all the time, and it's become so sophisticated, and the tool sets are so sophisticated that we're looking at security on a grand scale here. Talk to us a little bit about the global pandemic and how it's shaping the threat landscape.
Absolutely. Alex, I just was confronted this morning with a fire alarm drill my wife had. My wife is the VP of talent acquisition, and I've seen it from our HR folks as well, is that they use HireRight, right? A lot of people use HireRight. So everything's virtual in this world because of the pandemic. And then that's being used in different technologies to hire, onboard folks and, do business transactions, and all that. And what would happen here is that cyber criminals are sitting, they have managed to hack into unsecured laptops or accounts, emails, and they are watching the conversations, right? And then social engineering, where it really, in this instance, somebody called this particular candidate and it said, hey, we see that you are applied for this job on, for this organization. It happened in our organization. And this morning with my wife tells me, this has just happened. And it's a fire alarm drill that takes away from the productivity of the different companies, right? Because everybody has to jump on it, try to solve it. So what would happen here is that the candidate's laptop or account has been breached, right? Seeing the information. And then they called the candidate themselves saying, hey, I would like to get your bank account information, your passport, and all that, because they're being, going outside the United States, and their social security number. So the pros know what they want to get, and they use different methodology to get those information. And what would happen here is social engineering is on the rise, and this is where things really, credential theft is the big part of the social engineering, and also gaining information even further than was intended. So I see that as a disruptive, also, very detrimental on the organization, because they will use the persona of that executive or that employee to gain access and breach other areas of departments, and then they move money, right? This is all about breaching to get wire fraud, happening, and really been successful majority of the time. I don't know the money that's been lost, but there is an analysis on that. Hackers always, go ahead, sorry.
I was just going to say on this pro space, I mean, the people, and they're being paid. They are full-time professionals. They're dedicated to this. They're making their retirement money and more on this. And some very sophisticated ones I've seen recently. Bank of America, they're spoofing the website, the phone, and they're getting people to use their online transfer Zelle and saying, hey, someone did something, here's some money, and we want to get it back for you. In reality, they're going to take that money. And when you call the 800 number, it's showing up as Bank of America. It's very sophisticated. Another one recently tied to Black Friday coming up. Facebook, they're looking like it's a real purchase. They're taking your credit card information. They're setting up alternate Amazon account or something you use frequently, making small purchases, sending them even to your house. They're seeing if you react. If not, they come back Black Friday. They're gonna, take your whole account all at once. So it's very sophisticated on the personal and business level. So much so that I've seen people get totally paranoid. And when you're trying to do legitimate business, a bank wire transfer, they won't give an account number no matter what, which means you can't do a wire transfer. So it's affecting legitimate business transactions now as well.
Absolutely, Brent. It's disruptive to the business, right? Because we're all virtual. This is a virtual conference, right? Or you see different people in different ways that they're trying to communicate electronically and behind emails and behind phones and text, right? And this is really a big business disruptor.
We're going to talk a little bit about some of the approaches to mitigating these, but one of the interesting statistics here is that a majority of the data breaches and a lot of these threats are the result of unpatched vulnerabilities, as an example, number one. And number two, which was really interesting, this insiders and just employees, whether they're doing it willingly or not, can be the route in for hackers to be able to get in and to start to cause trouble. And you hit it on the head. They're very, very patient. They have a very productive approach to this. Very mature, right?
They're persistent. They call it persistent threat. There's a reason for that. And usually what they also do on the passive side is that they will scan all the perimeters of different IP spaces, and they're looking for those vulnerabilities that are not being patched. And you won't believe how much vulnerabilities are out there, and they exploit them. And sometimes either they drop a line in a Word document or in a Word pad and say, "I own you," right? And they'll move on, just because they're not interested. Or they would not leave a note and they stay in there, and they figure out a way to penetrate, vertically, and then move laterally, right? But that is happening. I investigated so many different breaches, and one of them is saying, "Hey, I own you," and on the WordPad, we put it inside the server, and they put their names and different names and all that. So it's pretty interesting when I saw that. So you see that sometimes, for their skills, they test their skills and then they move further. But you have nation states, right? So hackers, they're coming in different, colors, right, and areas in the world. And nation states really is dangerous because, just like what happened with the latest breach for SolarWinds, right? They used packaged updates of the versions, right, to put in their malware, right, and to basically take advantage of whatever that area of update happens, and that is really basically what happened to the pipelines, right, with the ransomware. They are nation state targeting. Smaller organizations that might not be as prevalent, they are targeting the government and big industry, right? But from Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea, they have their own set of agenda for their own security strategy, and they go after, different, targets. So you don't want to be part of the, as a small organization, or not relatively, on their target hit, to be a collateral damage. Because of it, you need to really to have a security program that has encompassing all elements of, your depth, defense and depth strategy, where you have all, the process, the people, the governance, the controls, and you test them. So that is part of what I've been seeing a lot more, that collateral damage happens.
That's phenomenal. A good segue into the next slide here. When we look at the view on the your view on the state of cybersecurity, what are you and your peers hearing? What are you looking at specifically We've got a number of talking points here.
Well, it's been big here on the 60% of the CISO peer group. When I surveyed it, I have access to a lot of CISOs in the country and in the world. And this is US-based survey that I did, and 60% out of the 10 CISOs, 6% of the CISOs say, hey, look, business disruption activities happening. People with no laptop, they have to get in to do their work just because of the shortage of chips and all that, right? So it's really a business risk that came in because of the pandemic. But what enhanced here is that if people have not gone to the cloud and have a digital footprint that is flexible, it's really, they are using all technology to get remote access back in their organization, and they don't have a certain things that really mitigate it. It's like multi-factor authentication or some other means. And people working from home, they have their own challenge there because of their particular infrastructure is not as good as the organization that they work in. So they see a lot of threat vector coming through that, from viruses, from interruption to business. And remember, security is also it's the availability, right? Integrity and confidentiality of the data, but also the availability of the data for the workers or for the business to operate. So that's really been affected a lot.
I've always loved that acronym CIA. Right?
I know, right? It was an old acronym, but really, Brent, it's prevalent.
Well, I'm just saying it helps all of us realize how important this job has to be to the entire company, right? It is like the CIA, but it's, as far as top security, but it's confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Also, I just hope the audience appreciates this slide here is from the quality CISO peer groups that Waqas is a member of. So you're getting insights here to meetings that he has on a continuous basis. This kind of information, it can't be bought, right? It's coming from the mind meld of CISOs and the kind of peers that Waqas talks and walks with every day. So the information on this slide is really, really insightful. You should take this back to your organization and see if you aren't seeing the same things, and maybe recognize that if you're trying to move along this digital journey, right here in this slide is giving you some great levers that you can pull.
Yeah, Brent.
Yeah, go ahead, Waqas. Sorry.
No, I was just gonna jump on Brent's mention of Bank of America, right? So the second bullet here, talking about the team being understaffed, right? 6.5 of the peers that they say, yeah, we're having problems. 6 of them having really, tough problems trying to recruit and employ cybersecurity analysts or security guys, right? The other 2 or 3 were from financial institution. I know Bank of America, for instance, because I know my peers there. They have 850 people in their cybersecurity program, right? Analysts to engineers and all that. And smaller organization like mine, medium and to small, they're going to be struggling to compete with that talent, and also the compensation also, right? And because of it, that's what I would could not say more enough about partnering up with managed services provider that really gives you all that, right? A team behind you to help you out with really minimum impact on your budget as you really enjoy that kind of robustness in the service delivery. So that's why my 2 of them, 2.5, right? Saying, hey, look, I have no problem with that. I steal people. I could pay them, right? You know that, Brent. So
I think you were saying that they were saying, yeah, we're the ones that are taking all your people. That's why the rest of the 8 of you are struggling. So recognize that kind of, it's a small network in every high skill area. Everyone knows everyone. There really are no secrets. You just have to figure out, what is the optimal way to retain people the optimum way to reskill or onboard. And we're seeing a trend around what we're calling BOT, build, operate, transfer, where another opportunity to, take and find that expertise that can set up the organization operation and then bring it in. That's another alternative. We call that maybe right sourcing, going along the journey the right way. So maybe as a client, another way is to find that service provider who has the expertise around onboarding, hiring, training, providing those career opportunities, and create the right kind of expertise that you don't have, get it in steady state operating. And then you can have this discussion about transferring it. If that's the right journey for you, is to internalize it back in the organization. So rather than try to even set it up and figure it out, go with someone who can do that for you, get it into a well-run organization, and then just focus on the transition or transfer back in is another possible opportunity for mid-size organizations.
Absolutely, absolutely. Cannot agree more. I got to you, Aleks.
No, I wanted to call out that last bullet, the move to SACE Zero Trust. That is, to me, a response, an effective response to moving in the right direction, setting up an intrinsic, philosophy and approach to these things. That we value everyone, we value our employees, we value our customers, but we also value them enough to keep them safe. The perimeter continues to grow as everyone works from home. People are traveling all over the world, and so it's great to see folks embracing some of these new approaches in light of the fact that there aren't a lot of skilled folks to be able to to handle these things day in and day out. And so it's a move in the right direction in my mind.
Absolutely. If you take the financial institution, they have the money, right? And today is or this week is basically the quarterly earnings calls, right? And the Wall Street, and you could see all the banks, Goldman Sachs, everybody, right? This morning, right? They have really beat their, the expectations, the market expectations, and so they have money to spend. Healthcare, pharma, right? They have that going on because of the pandemic and the government regulations. You could see that, SASE, Zero Trust, which is secure edge to the server, but you gotta be in the cloud, okay? To enable all this, you gotta be in the cloud, and that's cloud migration have helped the companies to really to embrace that and quickness on digital transformation for them to improve their applications and their service delivery behind it, all the framework that goes along with it. So that was really essential. And I see it because, the peers are going to the cloud, right? And most of them saying, hey, look, I'll take on the risk because the digital transformation to the business is really compelling proposition. I'll take on the risk as we start basically building the controls for the cloud as the business is really already in the cloud there, and you're trying to get really the controls to basically catch up with it. And lastly here is, I see the budget. My budget has increased, I would say twofold from the past 3 years. And the reason is mostly because of the new additional risk that it's come along, which is the cloud is what we've been talking about, and building the zero trust model around it and all that. And remember, anything that you do now, it's not capitalized. When you go to the cloud, accounting has not really caught up with this. Everything's expense. All of a sudden your boss is calling you, what the heck are you doing? All expenses going in this bucket. I'm not getting anything on the capital, right? Could you cut it back, right? So you have to have, some creative minds to help you achieve that goal, to, move it into either capital lease or whatever. But anything in the cloud you do, it's an expense now. There's not capital project. And because of it, I've seen increasing on site, and I see, many of them stayed the same. I would say 25% of the peers, they're saying, hey, it stayed the same, did not change it because I was already in the cloud, right? Some of them, whoever, myself, seen the increase just because we start to do the transformation. So that is what I've been seeing, 15% saying, 50% saying, yes, increasing dramatically, 25% seeing flat line and remain, and the others are really struggling to get any funding.
Yeah, fascinating. That's fantastic. Jump into, let's talk, this is one of my favorite discussions, offense versus defense. And for a lot of organizations, it's defense, defense, defense when it comes to security. Talk to us about this cyber black belt, and what are your thoughts on how to really think through this?
I'll give it to Brent. Brent could really talk a little bit about this. I want him to see his thought process.
Well, we put the title up here. I thought it was very, thought-provoking, a cyber black belt. Meaning, how can you and your organization ramp up, right, your skill sets? So there are some interesting ways that, security can go on the offensive, right? So people are familiar with terms like honeypots, right, or misdirecting people, or setting up, pseudo environments. They're not production, but they look like it. So they may even encourage, right, a door for these security, people of all kinds, hacking pros, nation states to come in, and then actually misdirect them, right, mislead them. So they're wasting their time, right, or you're reverse engineering what they're doing, right? You're understanding their habits, their approaches, and you can get them into a place that you've essentially isolated, and they're spending all the time there. So that's, basically the approach here of trying to go on the attack approach with the security space. Are these, may there be other ways, Waqas, that you could help us understand the opportunities, where you if you spend all your time reactive, right, you're never going to improve your position. That's basically the point that's being made in the slide. The other is, we recognize from any sport, right, playing defense is much harder than offense because you have to react. You have no choice. You don't know what the other party's doing. They may not know until they do it. But if you are in an offensive mode, you are always going to have a better opportunity to be successful. You have a little bit more lead time, and you're the one that's driving the behavior, right? You're directing what's happening as opposed to waiting. And also the basic problem of, think about a physical building. The way into a building is infinite, right? The roof, the basement, a vent, electrical, water, etc. And so you'll spend all your time looking, and you're never looking in the right place to find where the attack is coming.
Brent, that is correct. I call it, if I played soccer a long time ago and very well, and if I see we are defending too much, a goal is going to be scored on us, right? You really have to have the skill, right? It's the same thing. If you are, American football, I know Alex sits in Canada, right? Canadians. I don't think. Do you guys have football over there, like American football?
Of course we do, yeah. But hockey,
Yeah. That's right. Yeah. Okay.
Hockey's
So it's the
number
same
one.
thing. You cannot defend all the time, right? You have to have a strategy that is proactive and predicting, right, where the puck is going to go, right? And so you got to go there before the puck is there, right? So you really have to be on that kind of forward thinking. So on that side is that, make sure that you're building an infrastructure that goes in, has really good hygiene, right? Everybody is washing their hands. Everybody knows exactly, brushing their teeth, all that kind of stuff. Patching, make sure all of them, you have scorecard on patching. Make sure that all your front end internet facing, they're all hardened, right? That means you have a policy that no, server has to be deployed without this gold image that you have established. Has to have those kind of things, all the credentials in it only allow this. has MFA on it. If somebody would like to administer, it has to really go to an MFA before getting on the server. You have monitoring set up to make sure that it has you have visibility into it. If there is any alerts that comes out, you make sure that you really tune out all the nonsense alerts. Is just look at those specifics so you could really respond to those incidents effectively, and then you'll learn from it. And so this is how you harden your servers. There's nothing magical here. Is that really the tuning in and focusing to get things on the risk registry. If they don't have good patching, you put it out there, say, hey guys, we're not patching. Here's what's going on. Here's what we have. We're not discovering a new vulnerabilities, let alone we're doing a patch, right? So even though we are scanning, but nobody's doing anything on the vulnerability scanning report, right? Nobody, if you want to patch, this one is going to break this application. It's very hard conversation that around the table with different, infrastructure and application folks. And that, you're driving this as a security leader, and you're trying to, enhance the conversation to how, for enablement, right? So you're really a strategic involvement in this, is that you got to convince people, right? You got to work with them and convince them. So that's why I put it as a follow-up on this particular slide for a black belt. Black belt is basically really a champion within an organization as a security leader to enable other people to do the right thing, the hygiene thing, that security and hardening, right? So it's very good conversation to be had.
Yeah, we 100%. I'm a big fan of doing proactively pen testing, automating these things, and doing it as much as possible. Netflix has got the chaos engineering theory, the chaos monkey, introducing bugs just for fun to see how the organization responds, and they do it all the time. And so what you're hardening, not through blue team, red team, purple team exercise once a quarter. It's every day somebody could come up and dump about run a test on you and see how you respond, right? And so again, It comes back to budgeting, of course, but the automation and tools are helping with that conversation for sure.
Absolutely.
I just wanted to point out two things for the audience. There's a link here. Waqas has given high value here, this Microsoft security blog. It gives you some details that led to this slide. So if you think about this, here's the mature bookend here to the right. And then we've also, I just want to share, the world can be as simple as what I call flopping. Big organizations struggle to get the patches into the gold image. And flopping is when someone patches it and then they recognize something happened with the app and then they reimage it. Well, when you reimage it, it didn't have the patches in the image, so all those vulnerabilities come back again. And so this is a simple thing that can drive a lot of noise out of your organization, is to assure that once a vulnerability is fixed, you are scanning to verify that it doesn't come back on the very same devices again.
Absolutely.
And Waqas.
So we're almost at time, guys, and this has been fantastic. We could talk about this all day. To close this out, and there's been some incredible discussion points here. We've seen there's a lot of best practice out there, and I love this slide. There's a difference between following best practice and barely complying. Waqas, in your mind, are we moving in the right direction? Are we driving around with our shirts off?
Yeah, right. So it's a mind shift. I always say it's really a mind shift in terms of what's the difference between best practices and compliance, right? You could be compliant, right? Just like on the right side. But, best practices really, what I say is proactiveness, right? Figuring out, what else you want to, layer in your defense posture, right? What else that you need control to go in to make sure that the new people going in have the right permission, the right role into the data, right? Do you have, the right jacket on? Do you have the right knee pads? If you take a crash, if there is something that happens in terms of an incident, right? You fall, right? Can you be protected? Okay. Can you really get, a scratch on your elbow and you do not have an impact on you might have a bruise, but would not really penetrate the skin, just like the guy on the right, right? So if you think about compliance, I think that's the minimum things that you could, lead your security program with. I always suggest to enhance your security program over compliance. And with that is with best practices and the proactiveness and building defense in depth, the proactive controls that layers, something happens, the organization will recover. And, in the case of ransom attack, that other organization really suffered a big one, and they had to pay a ransom to get their data back or access back to their infrastructure and applications. So I like it to go, I am in between, it's cool, with the right breeze, to ride a motorcycle like that, like it feels good, but I'd rather to be on the safe side and layer the defenses just in case.
This is a fantastic slide. On the right, you're compliant, yeah, but you're still vulnerable and exposed. I think all of us in this space, we're in the business world. We want to be on the left and be safe and secure.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Maybe it's even a false sense of security, right? On the right.
Right.
There.
The guy on the left might not know how to drive, right? And it's might crash a lot, but you're taking the chance, right? I'd rather to be that way.
Fantastic.
Certainly.
Well, Waqas, it's been incredible, and Brent, incredible session. I really love talking to you folks. And again, I'd love to do this again. Maybe we can talk about that separately. For the folks that are here, I apologize. We are at the top of the hour. So maybe for the next session, we can open it up to be a little bit interactive at the end. But we just got caught up in some great discussions. And so I wanted to thank both of you for joining us. For the folks in the audience, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
If you have any questions, folks, and you want to reach out, we'll happy to pass on your questions to Waqas or to Brent. Thank you very much, and have a great rest of your day and a safe cybersecurity rest of your year.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Aleks. Brent, it was a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Waqas. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.